Greg here is adding the base coat or the initial color onto this particular flat. Sometimes you hear it referred to as the lay-in color or the ground color. Greg, I noticed that you were painting in X's. Do you want to explain that for us?
Sure. Painting in X's is a process called cross-hatching. It's very simple. You just go across your fabric and you keep making X's. The reason we want to do this instead of back and forth is because it fills the pores better and gives you a more even finish.
Right. We want our scenery to be as evenly coated as possible. One thing we need to mention is that when we do paint scenery, we have to add a texture or a surface quality to the object. When we look at something in real life, everything has a normal texture. But when we put it on stage, we have all these stage lights hitting the surface, which has a tendency to wash out the item or to give it a very flat, untextured surface. We want to get an emotional response with our scenery across to the audience. We want them to think as if the scenery would feel like something, so we give it that texture, and that's one of the next phases that we're going to go into. So Greg will finish this, and we'll step across the shop and find someone working on another project and take a look at that particular texture. Liz is using another texturing technique that we like to apply on flats, and this is a feather dusting technique in which we take a normal feather duster and using a pouncing pattern, by applying in the paint and twisting, we can apply it to the flat surface itself. Let's see, Liz, you have another feather duster?
Right, it's just an ordinary feather duster that you can buy at
you can buy it at 5 and 10 or at the grocery store or something like that. And it's nothing more than actually applying it. Becomes kind of like a paintbrush itself. We're just dipping and twisting.
We've got this one attached to a stick, so we don't have to bend over quite so much.
We could do this standing up.
Oh yeah, yeah. Sometimes it's just easier to do it this way, especially if you've got a bigger flat. We do spin it. You want to spin it to make the feathers fly out. The weight of the paint pulls the feathers out. For that reason, the paint's a little thicker than during the spattering. You wanted to water it down. This, you want to use the regular thickness of paint.
And just like the flats that Mike was spattering, we're using the same colors on the same color of a flat, and this gives us a much more pronounced texture than the spattering had done. And if we use the different colors but yet the same colors that Mike was using, let's see what a light blue will do on this. Okay.
And I'm going to use the same feather duster because we're going to mix the colors pretty much anyway.
It doesn't really matter how they appear, does it?
Right. Also, this is a good technique to cover a bad flat, a flat with bumps or maybe some glue stuck to it, or maybe with some holes.
That's a good point, because a lot of the times flats, if you've had them around for a long time, they may get kind of dog-eared and have some rips that have been repaired, and this will cover a multitude of sins.
Also, while you're using this technique, you don't want to go in straight lines. The idea is it's not supposed to be symmetrical. We want an even covering, but we don't want a pattern per se.
And the same thing with the spattering. If we have an area that's too heavy with one color, we can always come back and feather dust with the base coat, and it kind of even things out. Well, very good. I think we'll go on to the next phase and take a look at scumbling and some stippling as yet another technique. We'll come back to this when Liz is all done with it and compare it with our spattered flat to see the difference between the two.